The Tiwi Islands north of Darwin are no strangers to multi-million-dollar projects promising development and jobs for Tiwi people. But continued delays for two of the Tiwi's most prominent plans have raised concerns about the Tiwi Land Council's attempts to get the ideas off the ground. Melanie Arnos reports.
I think there's been a whole lot of consultants. I think there's been a whole lot of investments that have been wrong. If this was a business or an organisation in mainstream Australia, there'd be an outcry because it's taxpayers' money. And yet, because it's a remote Aboriginal community, it doesn't hit the Richter scale.
We've got very large tracts of land, a lot of forestry products, no port that's functioning to get the product out to market, and that seems to demonstrate that we've had a major project very badly planned.
This $50 million port development promising 300 jobs for Tiwi people was unveiled to much fanfare at Melville Island last year. At the time, the Tiwi Land Council predicted the port would be ready for its first shipment in early 2014. That was months ago, and with the end of the year edging closer, Tiwi Islanders are still waiting.
People expect to see real jobs, actions. We want to see actions to be done immediately, but people are frustrated and angry.
You do something bad.
Tiwi elder Pirawayingi has been a member of the Tiwi Land Council for 27 years and thinks it's responsible for the delays. He believes the council's delegates aren't being told the full story about its operations.
I get a feeling that they themselves aren't even being told what is really happening to the port, to the plantation. The port is at a standstill. We ourselves as delegates, as I said, we don't know where all the money is, how many companies we have. We've got a fairly good idea, but we're not being told about the Tiwi Land Council's structure, who comes and goes. It's not transparent enough.
I've had concerns for a long time. I think I've done about 2 to 3 submissions to the Senate and tried to get through successive federal governments an independent external inquiry into the I suppose the workings, but also the outputs of the Land Council.
The port development isn't the only Tiwi Land Council project that's facing delays. A major forestry plantation project developed in partnership with the council by company Silvertech and then Great Southern has struggled to get off the ground.
But it has been very secretive in a lot of ways in terms of how it's actually proceeding with some of these developments, and that means that a lot of the expertise that might have been able to help in terms of major project development haven't really been given access to how the project would proceed, so we've had amateurs, quite frankly, trying to put it together.
Between 2001 and 2007, 26,000 hectares of native forests were cleared on Melville Island to plant acacia manjum with the intention of farming and exporting the trees for wood chips. But the plantation has been plagued by the financial collapse of the company behind it and controversial breaches of environmental guidelines.
I think a number of Tiwi regard the sacrifices that have been made with respect to their land on Melville Island to be very substantial. They have given huge tracts of land over to forestry development. It's, in a sense, changed the ecosystem of Melville Island, and I'm sure the Tiwi think that that was a very significant sacrifice that they were prepared to undertake for their children, for a better life. And the fact that nothing has really happened over such a long period of time is, I think, very disturbing and leading to significant a disenchantment with the political system and wider Australia, unfortunately.
In April this year, the Australian newspaper reported the forestry project, worth an estimated $200 million, was once again edging towards collapse. Many believe these delays are disheartening for Tiwi people, eager to pursue ideas that could better their children's future.
Those two big projects have failed, but people often forget that there were 52 businesses on the Tiwi Islands that have failed and have gone bankrupt, or people have walked away, and the devastation that that has left on the community has been huge. And that's why there's been, if you look now on the community, Tiwis are reluctant to get involved, because to get involved means to be positive, you know, to give everything, only to be disappointed again. And I think people are just sick of being disappointed.
The motto of the Tiwi Land Council is assisting traditional owners retain, manage and benefit from their land, sea and culture. Former Northern Territory Deputy Chief Minister Marion Scrimger has long held the view that the Tiwi Land Council hasn't been helping Tiwi people. She first called for a federal inquiry into the council's operations 5 years ago.
It's important to get an audit happening so that people can get the full story, you know, and get the right story. And I think Tiwis can then go forward, because unless the lid is lifted and you have a proper look, I think you're never going to get anywhere. They want jobs, they want better economic futures for their children and for their grandchildren. None of that will ever be realised unless something fundamentally changes with the Tiwi Land Council.
In a statement to 7:30 NT, the Federal Indigenous Affairs Minister Nigel Scullion said,
"The Tiwi Land Council is an independent statutory body that has responsibilities under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act to consult with and obtain the consent of traditional Aboriginal owners when considering development proposals on Aboriginal land. As Commonwealth entities, I expect all land councils in the Northern Territory will work for their constituents and represent their interests."
They have become growingly concerned.
Some Tiwi people are pushing for a more democratic election process for the Tiwi Land Council.
There need to be election for Tiwi Land Council. Most of the men sit in the Land Council. We need more female in Tiwi Land Council.
It has to be restructured, and we can't, the Tiwi Land Council itself cannot elect people who they want on the management or executive board. I think that has to go back to the public, to the Tiwi Island people in the communities to elect who they want. That has to change. And the other thing that needs to change is we've got to have females, women on the Land Council.
In April, the long-time Chief Executive of the Land Council, John Hicks, told the ABC he had plans to move on.
Yes, at aged 75, I retire 30 June 2015. And yes, I probably go earlier to soak up some leave outstanding through the years.
And the land use.
Some Tiwi Land Council members believe he'll announce his departure early next week. Marion Scrimger is calling on the Commonwealth and Northern Territory governments to come up with a regional authority that delivers for the Tiwi Islands.
The Tiwis aren't a big population, and if anything, the money that has been spent, the Tiwis should be way ahead of any other group. They're one language, one people, they've always been isolated from the mainland, they've never had to go through and fight for land rights, so they've always had control of their land. They should be in a better position than most mainland communities, and they're not.